Right, we're really lost. No, we're just lost in relay. I get it, we're really lost. No, we're lost in relay. We're really You're not understanding. We're lost in relay. Yes, we're really lost. No, we're lost in relay. We're really lost. Okay, so in Lost in Relay, players are going to start by first shuffling up the entire deck and dealing every player at the table a starting hand of cards. Now, that starting hand of cards depends on the number of players at the table. In a 2-player game, each player is going to get 7 cards. In a 3-player game, 6 cards. And in a 4 to 6, they'll get 5 cards. After this, each player is going to be dealt 5 cards face up in front of them. These are your escape cards. And each player will get to move these around in whatever order is of importance to them. And then they will get to go into their hand and choose one card that is going to go face down at the very end. Now that card is going to be known as their ultimate escape card. And this will be the last card that they pick up in the game. Now all the remaining cards will go into a draw pile next to what we'll be calling the stack. From here, the player who most recently slept is the person who goes first. Now that's just what the book says. You can do whatever you want. I think it's kind of appropriate to the game, however. Now on your turn, you're either going to play a horror card or an event card. Now horror cards have a number on them, and event cards just have this little elder sign symbol. If playing a horror card, you must first look at the stack. If there are any cards here, then you must play a card that is equal to or higher than the current card on the stack. You also can play multiples. So if you had 2 of these in your hand, you would be able to play both of these cards to the stack, and we'll get to in a minute exactly why you would want to do that. If the stack is empty, you can play anything you want. But let's say the stack here had a 3 on it. I could play another 3 to it, or I could play a 4 to it, or even a 7. But I will be raising the stack value. Event cards, however, have no restriction based on the stack, and when you play them, you actually play them sideways because they do not affect the current value of the stack. So the next person to play would still need to play a 3 or higher, and the card down here would still count for any combining of cards. Now, as I said before, you can play multiples of the same card in order to effectively power up the card. For example, if I had these 3 available to me, I have powers on them of 3, 4, and 5. So when it's played as a 3 set, I get the 3, which is to play again. So if I were to play these 3 cards into the stack, I would get to play again according to the card. The next person, and this is the interesting here, in this case, I get to play again, but let's say I didn't, or let's say I did. Either way, the next person who plays, if they had another 3, in which case I do, they could play it to this stack, and they get the combine of all of these below it to create a 4. Therefore, they get to banish the stack and play again. So in this case, this person could put this down, banish this entire stack, and to banish is to remove from the game completely, and then they would get to play again. Now, one thing to note about this is just because this one here has a 3, 4, and 5 as the values doesn't mean you have to play in a 3, 4, and 5. I could play a single 3. I just don't get anything out of it. I could play 2 3s. I don't get anything out of it. At 3, I do, but you're not required to play the minimum based on the card. Now, as I said before, sometimes it may say to banish a stack, and banish stack is to remove from the game. But also, sometimes you may have to pick up the stack, and to pick up the stack, you bring it into your hand. Now, one reason that you would need to do that is if at any point you can't legally play a card from your hand, then you must pick up the entire stack and add it to your hand. So you may be asking yourself, how do I win this game? Well, it's fairly simple. What you're trying to do is have no cards in your hand and have played all of your escape cards. Now, how do you play an escape card? You play an escape card by starting your turn with no cards in hand, and you select one of these. Not this one. It must be the last one that you ever play. You select one of these cards and you play it. And you don't have to do it in order. So, an example, I start my turn, I have no cards in hand, and I choose to play Face Your Darkest Fears. Now, this one says that I'm going to banish the stack, including this card, and play again. However, there is a slight rule change when doing this, because you're only ever allowed to play one escape card on a turn. So if I were to do this, I would still banish the stack, but I would not get to play again. If at the beginning of my turn I have no cards in my hand and I have played all of my escape cards, then I get to take my final escape card and play it. Now, this is why it's very important that you know and be cognizant of what card you place there. In this example, I put Cthulhu Emerges. It allows me to pick up the stack, give it to an opponent, and then banish this card. Therefore, I would not take any cards into my hand. If this card caused me to bring cards into my hand, the game would not be over. Now, along the way, I didn't mention what this is. Now, this is the turn order, the direction of play. Now, in a 2-player game, you're pretty much not going to use it. But in a 3 or more player game, this determines the direction of play, and sometimes some cards will change that direction, and this is used to change it. Once again, once you've played this card, and you have no cards in front of you, and you have no cards in your hand, you're the winner. So that's a look at Lost in Relay. Now, the first thing I'm going to say right off the bat is I love this game. And I wasn't sure if I was going to like it or not when I first got it. I bought this game originally on a whim. I saw it in a store, I'd never heard of it, but I do love Lovecraft games. I like small games sometimes, and the artwork seemed decent, so I went ahead and picked it up. I think I got it for about $10. I believe MSRP on it is around $15, so what did I have to lose? Right from the start, I found a wonderfully thematic game, which was surprising being it's a 72-card game. And another thing about it is it felt familiar, like even drawing comparisons maybe to things like Uno and things like that, but with a lot more depth to it. So it's easy to teach. Like you automatically, somebody sits down and you teach it to them, they know, you tell them, hey, if I play a 4, well, you have to play a 4 or higher. It's that simple. But then you get to add on these layers of depth, where if I can play 3 4s, then I get something out of it. And that really starts to build up the game. And then the mechanisms feel thematic in terms of the futility and the madness of it. You think that you're about to win this game, or you're getting closer, and suddenly you're picking up the entire stack into your hand, and you're starting over again. And that feels very thematic, and even winning feels thematic. You really do feel like you left your friends behind in this mystical dreamland. And so everything just seems to work. And what I was surprised about is that I hadn't heard about this game at all, being that I do love things Lovecraft, and the whole Cthulhu Lovecraft theme has been very popular for the last couple years. Now, I do attribute some of that to probably Atlas Games themselves. The publisher's been around a while. They have a fairy tale game that I've heard good things about. I haven't played myself, but they don't seem to don't promote their games very well. And so I'm wondering if this game wasn't just a product of that. In fact, I recently saw this in a local gaming store, and the person behind the counter had seen the game, but didn't know what it was about either. And they said that they hadn't really seen anybody asking about it. And so I wonder if maybe the game shouldn't have had a little more marketing, but it is an inexpensive game that should hopefully sell itself. So if you are looking for something that is Lovecraftian, but it's fairly simple. Maybe fits in that filler size, but not filler playtime, because this game is about 45 minutes, so it wouldn't necessarily be a filler. It's inexpensive, simple to teach to both gamers and non-gamers. This is a good game for that. In addition, the artwork on it, while it is Lovecraft themed, it's not overly horrific. In fact, it's not that horrific at all, but it's also not cartoony. It sits somewhere in a nice balance. It's just well done art. It's tasteful and thematic. The component quality of the game overall, the tin, I'm not a big fan of tins, but this tin is nice. It's molded, it feels nice. It sits okay on a shelf as best as a tin can. The cards are well made. The little turn order token in it is a nice heavy, and it didn't need to be, so that was nice. The player count on the game is something I like to discuss a lot, and in this case, it's listed at 2 to 6 players, and I think that's actually accurate. I think this game really does play well with 2 players, in fact. I actually really like it in 2-player mode. Now, it does feel a little different, I'm not gonna lie to you. It feels a little more tug of war versus having multiple players, but other than that, it plays the same. It feels the same. It maybe goes on a little longer in 2 players, and I'm not sure why that is. It just does. But beyond that, I haven't played it at 6 players, but having played it at 3 and 4 and 5, I imagine 6 would be fine. So I do, with full confidence, recommend this game for anyone who loves Lovecraft games or just loves small, little, simple games. I hope you've enjoyed this look at Lost in Relier, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next episode. Ooh. Yeah, I'm lost in Relier. I'm lost in Relier. Oh, this thing's still on? Bye.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.